And he said, a plane just hit the World Trade Center, which isn't a big deal because it happened all the time. When the second one hit, you're like, shit.
Yes, this is no accident.
Yeah. And you're joining some sort of life of service in peacetime thinking, hey, this is a college thing.
Right.
This is going to hurt. It's time for the Suffering Podcast. Navigating through this life is a difficult task, and we try to avoid the pitfalls and dangers along the way. Sometimes we take a detour to the right or left thinking that it's the right decision. Often we end up in a place that we're not supposed to be. Chaos ensues, and we're thrown into a situation we cannot believe is happening. Our instincts kick in, and we must continue moving forward. One split second can change the entire trajectory of our lives. When the hazard is past and we come out, we're missing a piece of ourselves that we may never get back. Wondering if we'll ever be whole again. It's all up to you, whether you merely survive or thrive. I'm Kevin Donaldson here with Mike Failace, and on this episode of the Suffering Podcast, we welcome Earl Granville to discuss the suffering of a warrior. Earl's had to fight his way back, and he keeps moving forward every single day. Thank you so much for wearing that beautiful hat in here today.
Go Eagles.
Go Eagles.
You know, I was just going to say I'm outnumbered. I mean, I got two ugly guys and one good-looking guy. Nothing to do with the Eagles.
A couple weeks ago, you were looking real ugly on that. It's a bad day to be a Giants fan.
Before we get started, though, I got to say I read up on you. I'm not worthy, and you are. We'll get into it, but
so Earl's example is going to tell all of our audience to be an Eagles fan. But before we get into anything, let's get into our marquee sponsor, and that's Toyota of Hackensack. We don't trust anybody, but we do trust Toyota of Hackensack. Go to toyotahackensack.com and let them find you a car. But don't forget to let them know that the podcast sent you. So, Earl, you traveled all this way to come see us, and I thank you so much for everything. I've been, like Mike, I read a lot of stuff about you. I love watching your Instagram. I love watching your social media because you never stop.
Yeah, well, I appreciate the invite, and life is good. What can I say, man? You know, you're throwing some bad cards. You know, you're dealt a bad hand. You just got to play those cards right.
got to play the card that they hand you're dealt, right?
Yep, exactly.
Well, I always say that I won more with 7 deuce than I did with pocket aces. That's the truth. I lost many times with pocket aces. Each week we take a question from our audience, as our social media question, and this week's question comes from Jonathan B. It says, what was the best lesson you learned in your younger life? I'm going to pass this one off to you since you're our guest today.
Somebody, they didn't express this to me, but this person who asked me this question, it was asked to them at one point, and hearing their story, and I'm not even worthy to tell it, but they were asked, what will your legacy be? And that kind of stuck with me a little bit. Like, what are you going to leave this world after you pass away? And it's funny, I just listened to an audio. I'll just drive and I do. Everything is audiobooks. Mm-hmm. And I listened to a book, The Subtle Art of Not Giving a F.
Yes, I read that book. I know exactly the book.
So
The Subtle Art of Not Giving an F.
Yep. And he talks about legacy in that book. And after reading that book and hearing that, and so I just think about that, reflect on your life. What is your legacy going to be? And I thought to myself, I try to give my legacy now. Hopefully, if I pass away, if I kick the bucket right now, on the ride home, I get hit by a truck or something, right?
Listen, just wait till you leave here because my CPR card is not up to code. So if you're going to pass out, make sure you're outside somewhere.
And no, this will not have a little lower third in there in memoriam of Earl Granville. So please do not do that, please.
Yeah, let's not jinx this here.
Yeah, right. And you got to live long enough because at the time of this recording, in a week and a half, the Eagles are going to win the Super Bowl. So
you're absolutely
I'm just
right.
Keep hammering that in.
I'm going to be in Texas to watch that. So
that's going to be fun.
Oh my goodness, man! So I'll be wearing this. I'm sure the Cowboys fans are going to really hate it, but hey, get lost.
Well, they're no, you don't have to worry about Cowboys fans. Nah,
oh my God.
No,
this ain't the '90s, guys. Already take a hike, right?
Yeah, they're cheerleading. Mike, what do you think?
Well, I'm going to watch the game down in Philadelphia since I'm a big Eagle fan now. Take a trip down 95, go down to Broad Street. And you're going to get a kick out of this, but one of the biggest lessons I ever learned is my father telling me never quit. And again, I'm going to bring up the Chuck Wepner thing.
Again with the Chuck Wepner thing. Come on.
Everybody, let's not bring up the Chuck Wepner
I'm trying to get back in good graces, right?
I'm trying to forget that incident.
No, like I said, Chuck Wepner, my father always said he's not the best fighter in the world, but he never quits. He goes in there and just keeps punching away and punches away, takes his beating, keeps getting back up and keeps going. He said, you're never going to, well, he didn't know how good I'd be, but he said, you're never going to be the best at what you do. Just keep pushing and try to be the best. Mm-hmm. And that's pretty much what gets you through every day. You know, just keep pushing and keep pushing. You're not going to be the best at what you do. There's people going to be better than you at anything you do. But just keep pushing along and try to be the best that you can be.
You know, oddly enough, Earl, my answer to this question sort of piggybacks on yours. I learned a lot of lessons from my grandfather growing up. He was just a very wise man and taught me everything I know about being a man. But one of the things he said to me, and I didn't understand it until I got older, it's never turn your back on somebody and give them or allow them the opportunity to call you an asshole. All right? And if you think about that, it's what's your legacy going to be? When you leave a room or when you leave this world,
right,
what's your legacy going to be? How are people going to remember you? How are people going to see you or view you? Mm-hmm. And it's odd that you said that because I'm obviously we had this question before we started recording, and I'm thinking about my answer, and I said, well, yeah, that's a good one. That's a lesson that I believe is one of my best. Do I succeed every time in leaving a room without people calling me an asshole? This guy calls me an asshole like 4 times a day. But
it's funny. I was going to say, every time I walk out here, I'm like, that asshole.
Yeah. Do I fail? Absolutely. But to piggyback on your answer, I keep getting up and I keep trying. So, Jonathan, thank you so much for that question. We look forward to all your questions. Keep sending them in, and we will try to get on the air. So, Earl, I've read a lot about you.
I was going to say, where do we even start?
Yeah, this. I want to start. I want you to tell our audience a little bit about yourself. Obviously, we're going to get into a pretty deep and dark story because we are on the Suffering Podcast. So it's all sunshine and rainbows here. Mm-hmm. So why don't you tell our audience a little bit about yourself?
I'll just start somewhat in the beginning. Let's just say at the end of high school, I felt like I was a little punk, like literally like going to punk shows and dabbling guitar a little bit. And I think
how old are you?
39.
You're 39. Okay. Just I want to know what kind of punk era you're talking about.
Well, yeah, just some friends of mine in high school, they introduced me to the punk genre, and I go to a little venue called Cafe Metropolis in Wilkes-Barre, Pennsylvania. No security there, and a tiny little stage, and just all this underground music, I guess you could call it that. And, bringing the man down and all stuff like that.
Mosh pits and all that.
Oh,
good
my
stuff.
goodness. That I feel like that was my, my older, like my later high school days. Like
it's still me today. I still go to metal shows.
I still love it, man. I still love it. Jeez, man. But with that being said, my twin brother in our senior year of high school reached out to me about joining some type of armed forces services. And my cousin Paul was as well. And so I joined in the military, man. Like, come on, man. I had to work for the man, like work for the government. But I think what comes with that attitude sometimes, and just plus how immature I was at the time.
It's the rebellious attitude when you're younger.
Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. It was an outlet.
Yeah.
That kind of music was an outlet.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Oh, I loved it. And I still do today. Jeez, man. I was listening to Miffits on the way here. But it's like, there was an incentive that got me to join the military, and people could call it whatever they want. And for me, it was free education. Oh, I don't have a scholarship. How am I going to pay for school?
GI Bill.
Yeah, GI Bill. And I also at that time, going to school in the 90s, everything was, if you don't go to college, you'll never succeed in life. Anybody out there listening who, I graduated high school, early 2000s. So it was like, I think we all heard it. If you don't go to get a 4-year education, you'll never succeed in life. And we all realize that's bullshit.
Absolutely. If you look at anything with like Mike Rowe, the Mike Rowe Foundation actually gives scholarships to people going to trade schools because I forget the statistic he threw out. It was like 70% of trade positions are going unfilled, which are like $75,000 or higher to start.
Right.
I say it all the time. I went to college for a year, but it back in the mid 80s when I graduated high school, there wasn't such a premium on college as there is now. 10, 15 years, we're not going to have any plumbers. We're not going to have any carpenters because everybody's got a college education now. Now, where are we going to go?
And I think because everyone got a college education, because we're all told we're not going to
water it down.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's now it's supply and demand. So we really need those plumbers. We need those carpenters. We need all those blue collar jobs that I feel like society for such a long time looked down upon.
Well, so blue collar jobs. Him and I were both police officers. We were blue collar jobs. Police salaries in New Jersey were relatively high. So where you have somebody like, we'll take car sales. You have like a car salesman. Police are making more than car salesman, yet a car salesman is seen as a white collar job. So it's perception. It's really, really perception. So,
Even before law enforcement, I was in a pipe fitters union. I was always I left college. I started working right away. I was a blue collar guy my whole life. And I don't want to say I didn't need college.
oh, you needed it.
Well,
Yeah, you needed it.
Now, don't get me wrong. In December, I finished up school.
Yeah,
Finally, I got my undergrad.
But you finished it with different eyes than an 18-year-old.
exactly.
Oh, absolutely. Like what I do now, if you told me this was been in my life when I was 18, I'd been like, get lost.
Yeah.
But literally joining the military was because of college. You could say it, call it whatever you want. And I get, I remember I was getting teased for it. Hey, yeah, whatever, man. I joined for something. But I feel moving forward, things obviously changed. Joe and I graduated high school.
Your brother's name was Joe.
Yes, my twin brother Joe.
Twin brother, huh?
Yep, twin brother Joe. We graduated high school and we had a good summer and we landed basic training in Fort Benning, Georgia, and the date was September 1st, 2001.
Yeah, bingo.
Wow.
I don't have to tell you what happened 11 days later. And
Yeah, I was in the police academy when that happened. So,
yeah. And I always thought to myself, let's just say our shipping date was September 12th. Would I have gone, oh, I don't want to do this anymore. You know what I mean? Like, well,
So when you were, that's a good point, because when I had this similar situation when I was in the police academy, I remember to this day, Captain, his name was Captain Jack. He came in and he said, a plane just hit the World Trade Center, which isn't a big deal because it happened all the time. When the second one hit, you're like, shit.
yes, this is no accident.
Yeah.
And you're joining some sort of life of service in peacetime, thinking, hey, this is a college thing.
Right.
And now you're looking at it like, how did your perception change?
Oh, absolutely. And you got to remember, we joined the National Guard. All those commercials growing up, 1 week in a month, 2 weeks a year. Honest to God. So my life completely shifted. Like it's, but
now it's you're going to war.
Yeah.
right. And there's absolutely no thought that, we're not going to send us over to National Guard. I was like, oh my God, look at what just happened. The second time ever in history, like our nation was under attack. We all know what happened December 7th, 1941. So
Pearl Harbor.
yeah, exactly. So it's just the big wake up call.
Yeah.
And, and look, and we're going to Tarantino, looking at everything right now, I don't regret any of it. I really don't. I just was an immature kid at that time.
Did that motivate you at that point? Did it give you more like American pride, saying, I'm part of this now?
Absolutely not.
didn't.
It didn't.
Really?
No, honest to God. I'm telling you, I just had that bad attitude. I remember looking at Joe, just like, we're in basic training together, and it's just like,
What the fuck's
We're
going on
fucked.
now?
yeah, what the
Yeah.
fuck did you get me into?
What'd you get me into? We could be at a punk show right now.
And and he hated that stuff. Honest to God, we were the worst twins ever.
So
Joe and I.
there was a funny story my grandfather always used to tell me. He had a bunch of brothers. He had 5 brothers, and after Pearl Harbor, they all went down to join. Because actually, the story is they all got drunk, and one of the brother Bill all talked them into going down and joining the army. Well, they all got accepted. And Bill got rejected.
Oh no shit!
So my poor uncle, he became prisoner of war for 27 months in Germany. So he always sort of held it against my Uncle Bill. Yeah, just I'm sure you held it against your brother in some form or fashion when it was going on.
He probably knew there was something wrong with him where he couldn't get in. He got flat feet or he colorblind.
Joke's on you guys.
It's like, see ya, have fun.
And he's sitting there with a doobie in his mouth.
Have fun storming the castle. I'm gonna go back to the bar. But yeah, that's what it was.
Yeah, I'm storming White Castle. Why you guys are storming that castle?
Oh, great. But yeah, the world changed on September 11th. It changed for everybody. It changed everybody's mindset. When did the military start to be something that you got a little used to?
Basic training, you had to get used to it. So I mean, it definitely started there, but I think the bad attitude was still there. Like I'm here now, and there's little things like that first PT test you took in basic training. Everybody bombed it. Not everybody, but I remember I definitely bombed it. There
was always that one guy who outdid everybody. I'm like, man, you jerk off.
Oh my goodness, yes. Oh geez, the guy, his last name was Caps. CAPPS, I believe is how you spell it. And right off the bat, he's just smoking everybody. And like, geez, man, and like I'm thinking to myself, I was drinking in high school, like I'm just when did I ever run 2 miles before? You know what I mean? Like, so it is what it is. But that's the military. They build you up, and that's exactly what they did.
They break you down in order to build you up.
Yes.
Yeah.
Which I love. Which I didn't realize that until I got into the police academy, that it's a game.
Yeah.
It's a big game. I'm going to break you down as individuals and I build you up as a team. Oddly enough, it's what I do to the kids that I coach. I coach youth sports. I break them down. I'll pick out the individuals and I'll break them down. I'll break them. And then I build them back up and I let them build each other up as a team. And it's a lesson I never forgot.
Absolutely true. And you learn a lot about yourself. And it's, hey, I never thought I would ever shoot, 38 out of 40 targets with a rifle. I never thought I would be running 2 miles in 13 minutes and 20 seconds. Little stuff like that. You just learn so much about yourself if you actually embrace it. And that's what I started to do in basic training. And I think everybody does that. Like, that's nothing like out of the ordinary.
Well, you unlock certain things inside your mind that it's not possible until it's possible. It's like the 4-minute mile. Nobody thought that it was physically human to run a 4-minute mile. Guy breaks it in, I think it was 56 that he breaks the 4-minute mile. And then within the next year, like 11 people broke it because it's possible.
Takes one person.
Takes one person to break it. But inside yourself, you never thought you were capable of doing all that stuff. And then you do it. And you're like, well, what am I leaving on the table here?
Exactly.
And now you watch New York City Marathon, and like the 21st and 22nd mile, they're running 5-minute miles. It's like, you got to be kidding me. Gone.
So I just ran the New York City Marathon, and I got to tell you, because of my injury, I get an early start. So when those elites run past us, it's like a flash,
speeding
man.
car.
Like, holy shit. And there's a car behind him with a camera, and the whole world's watching it. And I'm like,
so won't slow down. Were you one of those guys, because I ran it in 06, were you one of those guys that pissed off every bridge?
No, I was not, but now I got a goal.
So there's a group, so there's 6 bridges.
Yes.
All right, starts at the Verrazano and throughout. There's a group of people that's their mission to piss off of every bridge. And so you start on the Verrazano and you're like, this guy's got to piss already? It's like you're just starting. You feel the bridge. Like, I got stage fright, so there's no way I'm pissing off a bridge. But these guys, they hung trowel off every single bridge.
Just keep hydrated, man. Holy shit.
You said you pissed off of every bridge. You pissed off every bridge. I was going to say, piss off all the bystanders.
That's
where I thought you were going with it.
It's a beautiful scene in the beginning because they got all the boats, the FDNY boats. They're shooting the colored water out and everything, and it's beautiful. And you look over. Oh, look, there's a guy pissing. There's a guy pissing. There's a guy pissing.
Shit they don't put on TV.
No,
they should, because that would be funny.
Welcome to New York.
No, but yeah, I saw some of those elite guys in the pit. It was a Peruvian guy, and they look like skeletons. I mean, and they move so fast.
Right.
It's crazy. But yeah, it's an interesting experience. But that gets back to the point. You ran. Now, just so everybody knows, you have one leg.
Yes.
And you ran the New York City Marathon. Mm-hmm. So looking at the camera, I'm going to say, what are you leaving on the table?
No kidding.
What are you leaving on the table? This guy, one leg, runs 26.2 miles.
And you know what? This was my 8th marathon, and this was my PR. I
Was it really?
finally, look, I'm not the fastest guy out there. My other leg's full of hardware. I really trained different for this one. A lot of salt tablets this time too, because I think in the past, cramp. But my goal, I said to, and I qualified for running guide. And basically, they're just out there for me to, hey, you want to go run a marathon with me? Basically, that's pretty much, they have a little fanny pack to hold stuff if I need like a wrench for my prosthetic or whatever it may be. And I said,
so you're telling me you need a pit crew to run a marathon?
Yeah, there you go. Hey, and
Gets an oil change at like mile 13.
WD-40.
Yeah. So, but there's some challenges inside yourself, and when you run across that finish line, for me, when I ran across the finish line, it was very anticlimactic, like our retirement.
Yeah.
Like your retirement from the military. You think it's going to be this woohoo moment, and it's kind of like, okay, what's next?
Yes.
For me.
Yeah.
For me.
Definitely. I
Yeah.
can see that. It's just, I from my immediate family, I'm the only one that got a bachelor's, and I just got my bachelor's, finally, and I'm 39 years old. But it's like, now what?
You got to update your website because it says you're pursuing.
Oh,
I just
jeez.
want to bring that out to you.
Really? Well,
Well, when you're in the military, let's get back to the military.
Sure,
when you're
sure.
in there, when did you get? You go through basic training,
Right.
and you find out you're getting shipped out.
correct.
All right. So
Yeah. So,
is that when you got your real first taste of war?
well, my first tour was Bosnia, and if you read the book "Love Thy Neighbor" by Peter Maas, I read that before I went over there. You understand why NATO forces were in Bosnia in '92 to '95. Huge.
That was Slobodan Milosevic. Was that the days of him?
Yes,
Yeah.
and they and the genocide that was happening in that part of the world, and 3 years of that going on. NATO forces stepped in. Wow, this has to stop. But the time we got there, read the book, by the way, anybody out there, if you're unfamiliar with the Bosnian conflict. But the time we got there in 2002, there was no real threat to NATO forces. It was more peacekeeping. So yeah, it was nice, easy deployment. First time ever leaving the country. And I was 19 when I got boots on ground, and it was just an experience. There was some mass grave sites, and learning from the locals and our interpreters that we worked with every day of exactly what the Bosnian people or a lot of Muslims are facing over there. That book, it's like about like you and I could be neighbors all this time, and then all of a sudden you just start slaughtering my family. And I don't mean just like go in and shoot them all up. I mean just horrific torture and rape. It's wild. Reading that book, like, just be advised, it's heavy. And it made me understand why we were there. And came back from that deployment. Like I said, we're National Guard, so I started getting that education after returning from Bosnia. And I went to Lackawanna College, got 2 semesters in, and we got a warning order for Iraq, but it was a volunteer mission. The way the National Guard worked at the time, you have to be home for so long before you are told to deploy again. I don't know the exact timeline or dates. And when I returned from Bosnia, I was like, oh man, my contract will be over in like, by four more years. So when this warning order happened, I was like, and it was volunteer. I was like, oh, I'm not going to go. But Joe really wanted to go. And I thought, man, God forbid if something happened.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
and it just, maybe I should go as well. And it seems like everybody that I knew on that Bosnia tour was volunteering for Iraq.